And welcome back. Today we're going to have a kind of a quick lesson here as we talk about something that might give us a little more flexibility when we start working with animated images that might be larger than what we are currently working with. So just as a recap, this is of course our image that we created, and if I move through each of these individual frames of animation, one of the things that you will notice is that each of these individual frames, some of these frames have a lot of kind of almost like white space here. All right, they have a lot of room where nothing is really effectively happening up here. And when that can come an issue is that if we want to manipulate certain things, we are right now telling Photoshop you need to load all this transparency here, which is not too much of an issue because right now we have a very simple image. But if we had a larger image, this could of course potentially cause some issues. So is there a way for us to address this? The answer is yes. Over here in our layers panel, we of course have an option to change things. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the three lines here, this little hamburger menu, go to panel options, and it's going to bring up the layer panel options. Now the first thing you'll notice of course is our thumbnail size. So I can go ahead and toggle these, for example, to change the thumbnail size, and that allows us to see these at a little bit larger glance here. Now of course because our image is at this point pretty small, it's okay for me to go ahead and keep this on the small thumbnail. However, what I do want to point out here is the layer bounds here or entire document option under thumbnail contents. Because what this is going to do, it's going to change what is displayed here in the thumbnail. It's not going to necessarily remove things that are within those images, but it's going to look to say like, hey, what can I remove so I don't have to go ahead and display that? So if I'm going to change this to layer bounds, and just go ahead and click on OK. All right, and one of the things you will notice is that immediately these images over here, my layer panels, look different. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and go back to my panel options here and make this medium size, just so you can see effectively how different these are. Now you notice that they're not all that same square that we usually have. Instead, it's saying like, where is there information and can I remove that? And so you can see these images are a lot flatter than what we had before. And that's all because I did my layer bounds option here. Now I can of course change this back to entire document and click OK, and you will see that it restores those to their original size. So it's not destroying anything, but it's making it easier for us at a glance to look at what is in those individual layers. So when I want to go through and say, hey, which layer is it that I need to manipulate, where for example, I want to look for this layer here where the ball is nice and flat and deformed, I can look and say, okay, that's layer 4 it should be, right? And if I am in that panel options with layer bounds on, one of the advantages is that I don't have to necessarily click through each of these here, because I can look at a glance and say, oh, here's that layer that is a lot flatter. I can look at that one and adjust that layer individually. It's just one more strategy for us to kind of go in and be able to work with this. And now the nice thing is, again, Photoshop automatically recognizes these layer bounds for us, so we don't have to necessarily go through and set them. Now there are, of course, you can see other things that we have here in layer bounds. For example, you can see there's use default mask, expand new effects, and add copy to copy layers. But for now, we're just going to focus here on the layer bounds option. And we can leave an entire document, that's fine too. Because again, this is simply just something that gives an option of one more thing to be able to work with. And so what I want you to do today is just go ahead, take your panel options, and go ahead and adjust this to a size for the thumbnails that you think is going to be much more appropriate for you to work with. And see if you can go ahead and toggle your thumbnail contents to the layer bounds option and see which one is most comfortable for you for working with.